behavioral, you understand it's everything based on the service, behavioral approach, service not only for the patient, but also for the providers. So they're doing a lot of research projects related to this aspect. So, and our division, Geroscience, taking different portfolio. It might be, clinical study, observational study, clinical trials, omics, different kind of aspects that involve human subjects. So I'm working in the branch, and specifically my portfolio is to test innovative approach in early phase clinical study. So clinical trials, not observational, it's mostly interventional clinical study. So it's exactly for the drug discovery, because we know we don't have so many drugs for aging, to treat aging, and only one drug that's been proven from the translational study, it's rapamycin. Of concerns about safety and applicability for prevention or for treatment of aging diseases. So, but we have a lot of candidates and a lot of new targets that's been tested in animal and late translational studies. So, and our branch is looking how to translate those discoveries from late lab study to early clinical. So speaking about phase 1 and phase 2 studies, so that's a major topic of my portfolio. We're not talking, of course, the largest phase 3 studies. Of course, we do support some of them, but it's mainly not on innovative drug discovery. So because this phase 3 study requires a lot of funding, it's a very expensive projects, and we cannot run so many of them. Just the idea, like screening funnel, we need to find the candidate, the best candidates of best compounds that will demonstrate efficacy in early phase clinical trials to plan and structure future clinical trials, which will be much larger and will involve different population. So this is my scope of the portfolio. The portfolio is still under development, because once again, we don't have so many trials, and the system, federal system, is a little bit complex. I will not discuss some details, but the review of this grant is kind of challenging, and we need to work and to organize the special program and special review committees to give the sense what we're looking for to the peer reviewers, and to make sure those projects will be reviewed properly with sufficient expertise.
Any any new up and coming promising therapeutics that you could share with us?
Not yet, but I will tell you, what's in the portfolio, because many studies now are focused to senescence, cellular senescence, and I think you're aware about this mechanism. It's a killing cells. Unfortunately, we don't know too much. We don't know how to differentiate the senescent cells, which organs have a majority, or how they distributed between organs. Do we have a specific maps? NIA and NIH has a program. It's SENNET. You can search. I think it's a searchable SENNET program, SENNET program. And this is not a clinical, this is mostly mapping senescent cells and creating the atlas of senescent cells. So these efforts are still started, recently started, still going on. I think the program is just 1 year old. And we're looking, of course, the data how to differentiate and how to recognize different subtypes of senescence. For now, what we know, senescent cells are causing inflammation, just a slow grade inflammation, and secrete a lot of SASPs, proteins and markers that induce that cell damage, in particular, induce inflammation. Many SASP are inflammatory, cytokines, and other markers. Some preclinical research demonstrated what senolytics, specific compounds that might kill senescent cells, might be beneficial for longevity or for prevention or even treatment of some diseases that involve senescent cells. And currently, Mayo Clinic which is based on I think I know it's Rochester, Minnesota, and they did the laboratory of Jim Kirkland. I think you heard about him. They demonstrated what senolytic drug. It's not a drug; it's compound, fisetin. Fisetin is a compound based on the strawberry extract. It's abundant in the strawberry, but the concentration in the berry is too low. So if to isolate fisetin in the significant amount and to give them to mice, people found it's a pro-inflammatory and causing a lot of positive effects, particularly killing the senescent cells. So, and for now, there are, I think, more than 18 clinical pilot studies that involve fisetin and testing for different conditions. Let's say, as I aware, it's idiopathic symptom, it's heart failure, it's kidney disease, chronic kidney disease plus diabetes, sepsis, just to prevent multiple organ failure at development of profound sepsis. Dr. Kirkland even initiated a study for COVID to reduce the acute COVID symptoms. And he's enrolling currently residents of nursing homes to see if this treatment will decrease side effects and decrease inflammation. So that's what we have. And some company is working in macular degeneration project. It just started with senescence. So there are a lot of options, but everything is just in the beginning, and we don't know. We have some reports from only 2 studies, but those reports only initial, not complete, and the PIs who completed that clinical study are preparing the final reports, and those articles are still under review. So we hoping it will be beneficial, but we don't know how much and what is the efficacy of this compound. The challenge with drug development, and particularly with fisetin, is IND approval. Because, as you know, for at the United States, before you will start clinical trial, you need an IND application and IND approval from FDA. For fisetin, Dr. Kirkland has a standing approval for the specific therapy regime, concentration, dosage, which is based on preclinical study. It's a more than 100-page package. And it took him, I think, 1.5 years just on the forth and back in communication with FDA. So there other clinicians and the other PIs who want to test fercetin for different health indications and for different diseases might take this IND protocol, slightly modify just to refocus to the specific health indication, and submit this modified IND to FDA, which will give the expedite process, which it will take just a few months, probably up to 3 months to get it. The challenge, the current challenge, many PIs are using the same protocol. So 20 milligram per kilogram per day drug within 3 days, then a part of the week, and repeating the treatment. What we discussing now and how to adjust the dosage and how to adjust the therapy and how to make it specific for the health condition, because obviously diabetes or frailty are different than sepsis or COVID. And this might require adjustment, different dosage, different protocol. So those questions are still questions. And we planning to work with FDA and with different institutes to figure out how to make it more flexible and adaptive. Because from my opinion, it's too good to be true. If the same protocol and specifically for supplement will be applicable for different diseases at the same dosage, so this is not so strong. We're still talking about the supplement.
Mm-hmm. And for those who would want to create a pharmaceutical compound, would you have any advice for them, since you've worked in the sort of drug approval industry and NIH?
Oh yeah, it's a hardest question and hardest area. And of course, you understand when you are developing a new compound, you have to understand the pipeline, drug development pipeline. So we're talking about, once again, we are talking about a new compound or repurposed compound. Because if we're talking about, okay, somebody is coming, I will let Lydia in. I think she's connecting. We'll continue.
Hey, Lydia.
Hi, Lydia. So we're talking about how to start drug development, and is it hard to do? So you need to understand this is a new compound, completely new compound, first class compound, or best class compound. Do you know the difference between first class and best class?
No, would you please explain?
Okay. The best in the class, it's something already does exist. And you're doing some modification on the group, like on a steroid or a group of compounds, and you modify it. It might be based on medicinal chemistry or maybe something else. You improving the properties, but the original compound is already does exist and maybe even in use, or maybe used as an investigative drug. This is best in class. If you're talking about new in class, it's completely innovative. It's my target different mechanism, something absolutely innovative. So when you discover this compound, of course, you need to test it in animals and to demonstrate it does effect. And also you need to modify it later on, because some safety parameters as checking as toxicity, bioavailability should be done. And if the compound is not good enough, for example, for oral administration, which is more likable because IV injections, it's applicable, but it's really no hard and limited and very, very, very specific. It's not for longevity. Mostly those drugs are used for acute conditions. So everybody now are trying to do it oral and bioavailable. So that means you need to do medicinal chemistry to make it less toxic, specific, and bioavailable. And then it's coming to the final translational study and early clinical study. Once again, early clinical study for toxicity, early clinical study for dose correlation, and then phase 2 for efficacy. So it's a long process. Some companies, and currently what do we have in the space of longevity, they can already approved compounds that been tested, and we call this repurposing. So that means so one drug being used already in a different health condition, different diseases, and been approved by FDA, and we know it's a safe. So we can skip very big part, and we can test in the lab animals for efficacy, just to demonstrate why it should be repurposed, and you can go directly to the clinical testing. So that's exactly the case of fisetin, because it's a nutritional supplement. This is now the case for rapamycin, because the derivatives and mTOR inhibitor has been used in the cancer and liver and kidney transplantation. And if you heard everolimus, that's a common drug that's been used. So now we'll be trying to repurpose and to see if these drugs also can be applicable for longevity, because in the labs, as I said, rapamycin demonstrated increase in survival, in mice survival. It's only one drug right now has been proven, and really it demonstrates the change in the mice survival. Yeah, but the problem is if we're talking about longevity in a human, and specifically if we're talking about prevention, it should be given and should be taken for a while, like let's say, like a blood pressure medication for the, like cholesterol lowering drugs for the long time, and we still don't have data about safety of this drug, because speaking about cancer patients, they're really sick and they're using multiple drugs, multiple medications, and the story is absolutely different. It's a short-term application just to prevent senescence or to apply to inhibit mTOR mTOR. But for longevity, this might cause a significant effect. For example, people are wondering about glucose intolerance, because mTOR inhibitors might inhibit mTORC1 complex and mTORC2 complex for the chronic administration. mTORC2 complex is involved in glucose homeostasis. So that's why if we inhibit mTORC2 complex, some risk of diabetes might be feasible. Yeah.
Speaking about diabetes and repurposing drugs, you know how metformin right now, I mean, it was used for diabetes before, but apparently it's now considered a semi-longevity drug, although not physically approved.
Yes, we have a couple projects about that, and we found the project about metformin and microbiome. We're still looking, because there is a hypothesis that metformin might decrease inflammation, might affect microbiome composition. So that's an interesting hypothesis. And one clinical trial just recently has been initiated. Also, there is a hypothesis what metformin influence on T regulatory cells, particularly T14, T12, and so. But once again, I know the principal investigators, and they apply this idea for testing biosamples from different clinical trials. We don't know results. It's still just a hypothesis. Yeah, but there are several PIs, PIs, that's abbreviation, primary investigators, who are interested in repurposing of metformin.
What I'm curious about is, so you said if you discover you find new targets, you create a completely novel compound that's attacking new mechanisms. When are you allowed to transfer your trials from like an animal model to a human? Like, what's the process of actually bringing it into
The
humans?
process of actually, it's an IND application. You need to have sufficient data to demonstrate applicable dosages and applicable effects in a translational animal model. So it's called IND application. You can go to FDA website, and I think they have a lot of videos for IND application explaining the basic. So before you move into any clinical step, you need, at least in US, you need to receive IND application. And it's better, we always suggest small business or investigators conduct FDA as early as possible when you're working with pre-IND, which means you're working on a package for translational study, because they can recommend what it should be included and should be considered for IND. Because I was working with a small business in my portfolio as well, and some researchers completing the translational trials and trying to submit IND, but some key study maybe missed, or they didn't do key experiments or key dosage on key parameters. So sometimes, for them, it's hard to back to us and to ask additional funding, because they're losing some aspect of innovation. Because when people are doing translational study, they come in, for example, to our division of basic aging, and they submit in a big grant proposal. It's called a research grant. Mostly it's about 250 or 1,000 per year for the lab for 4 or 5 years, and that's a very, very big project. And if they miss some key measurements, key experiments, it's really, really hard to get back and to remake it. So they need to add additional funding or look for additional resources. So we always recommend, if the lab, if the investigators are considering IND and move into the clinical, I think it's better to communicate with FDA as early as possible when you're writing the pre-IND protocol.
And are there any projects that you've prioritized following the pandemic?
For pandemic? We're not working for aging as a pandemic because aging is still not in that stage, and we don't have an aging drug. Mainly the NIH Institute on Allergy and Infectious Disease, which was led by Dr. Fauci. They've been responsible for that. And as I said, we have some supplemental projects or some grants or some research that's been initiated before pandemic, and investigators decided just to add that element, patients or specimens, just to get that mechanism. In my portfolio, I still have that grand clinical trial with fisetin to test in nursing home residents who've been diagnosed with acute COVID, which is still a problem even with full vaccination. We know right now what they still can be diagnosed and they still can get COVID. And the investigators are testing fisetin, specific treatment protocol with fisetin, with the goal to reduce inflammation and improve outcomes. Just because the primary endpoint is the rate of hospitalization. So the thinking the COVID symptoms with fisetin will be smaller, will be lighter, and will require less hospitalization. So that's the idea. But once again, for now, they don't have so many patients enrolled because it's not about incidents, of course, in nursing home, and mainly it's challenges to get to this study and convincing nursing homes, personnel, staff, protocols to deliver drug, to get contracts, subcontracts. A lot of policy administration paperwork is involved.
Mm-hmm. We were also wondering, why did you go to the NIH, and do you plan to work anywhere else in the future?
Oh, it's a long study. Of course, I was working in academia, and I had my lab. I was working as assistant professor. No, let's not say no, kind of my career when I graduated with my PhD. And originally, by the way, I'm from Russia, and I graduated Moscow State University in the area of enzymology, biochemistry. And I came to the Harvard School of Public Health to do my fellowship. Dealing with fellowship, I spent 5 years in Boston, and I got my grant from American Heart Association because my field was cardiovascular diseases, and particular that work was in the area of thrombotic diseases. So I completed my fellowship, and I got offer of assistant professorships in the System University of Georgia. It's been a little bit big move. It was 2004. Coming back, and at that time, that was really a big shift, from Boston to middle of nowhere between South Carolina and Georgia. So, but it was very positive, very interesting experience, and I spent 10 years over there. So I really like American South now, and I feel myself kind of 50-50. I feel comfortable on North and on the South. But it was a great experience moving from the high-rank university to the just a regular academic school, medical school. Particularly, I was working in the division of cardiology and later on division of neurology. I was still doing a lot of cardiovascular, thrombotic, AFib, heart failure, stroke studies, and I had some project translational, clinical biomarkers. Particularly, we tested several approaches to treat stroke patients. So I just got my knowledge in that area. And later, the life is just always turning, and I just realized it's maybe it's time to go to north back and to work with a little bit different direction, not strongly in the research in the lab. Of course, I know I was managing the lab and biosampling, bio specimen, facility. But to do this in academia, in particular in the US, you need a lot of funding, and you need a lot of collaboration research, because everything is too expensive. It's a work. It's like a private work and a private company, but you do not control the situation, because everything based on your funding, NIH funding. And you have to be verified. And of course, it depends on your environment and your collaborators, the rank of university and the policy of the university. If they're education-based or if they're research-based. And in my case, that university, Medical College of Georgia, just changed their politic and decided to be primarily focused in academic, less than research. So that was a big move to look for something else. Maybe with an open mind and not so specific to thrombotic disease or to cardiovascular, and to apply the knowledge about translational study, basic study, clinical study to some other area of health research. So that's how I came to NIH, but I came actually to the different division, different even institute. I started my NIH career with small business research in National Institute on Drug Addiction. So we had a translational office, and we were working with portfolio with small business. So that's how. And once again, I really appreciate this experience, because I understand how small business works and how to support, and what kind of knowledge we need to bring, and how to educate small business in the development, how they can get support from the federal resources, and then how to use this data to get more VC or angel funds, and how to commercialize, what kind of efforts are needed to commercialize the product, because everything should be not to support infrastructure. Everything is about the output, how to make the product for people, and to have successful commercialization and realization, whatever, if we're talking about device or mobile technology or drugs. So the same principle, what kind of benefits the customers are getting from this product. And my work was to educate and to lead to that way of thinking. And of course, so we reviewed the grants and we selected the best applications to support financially to do the project, what they planned to do. So, and later on, I decided just to change a little bit focus and decided to go directly to clinical, less spreading my activity from everything, because my portfolio had a device, IT, surveys, contracts, drug development. So I just realized the aging area, and particular early clinical trials are very attractive, very interesting, and I can apply all my previous knowledge in the drug development, translational research, biomarker research, small business, initial clinical study. So that's why I came to create this portfolio for early phase clinical trials, to test innovative compounds, innovative approaches that can be applicable for aging diseases. So that's how I came to that. If you're asking what's the next plan, I don't know yet. So we need to create a portfolio, we need to support, and I think it's a long run. So I'm happy now what I'm doing.
Is there any specific advice you would give to a high schooler who's interested in longevity and how to get into that?
I think you are in the right way. So I just am really amazed that you're in the high school and already established this organization and been involved to support IRDD. So that's very exciting. It's very exciting. So I'm thinking about, my daughter. She just, freshman, the first, year of the high school. That's the interesting way to do.
If your daughter wants to join the Youth Longevity Association,
I'm not sure she is more interested in medicine. I think she is more interested in psychology and something like that, kind of border psychological science. She wanna. For her, she said, "I'm interested to know why people are doing this and what is the primary driver." And how the decision came, what's behavioral consequences. So it's a kind of medical psychology, or maybe I don't know yet, but she's thinking this way, not in a clinical and not in a just no lab research. She's looking for the more social interaction and social research. We'll see. But in terms of advice, you're doing the right thing, because for the junior investigators, the key to find a mentor, the good mentor, not like you, somebody who will drain, will use you, who will share experience, who will provide the opportunity, who is very established, who are sufficiently publishing, because this is the key for you, just to be published. Because when you're selecting a mentor, look in the PubMed, look in the achievements, talk to them to see if their work is productive, if they're involved in the community. Just to be surrounded by different people, and to have an opportunity to be introduced to the different teams. So you will get information. Don't be so one way focused. Just to be open mind.
And would you recommend any books or papers for us to read?
Papers, always, what's the best resource? It's PubMed. It's a PubMed. There are a lot of articles. They are free in use. So of course, some articles need subscription and not available for the public. But there are tons of information, articles, and particular reviewers. Maybe the best way to start to read the good reviewer articles from the PubMed if you're looking for the specific topic. So I think it's a top information. Of course, books, longevity, some chapters, yes, are good, but mainly the investigators are writing the book based on their publications. So that's a peer review public, and that's why I do recommend to look PubMed, because all those publications are peer reviewed. So blogs or white papers are good, but once again, that's a personal opinion of those authors, and maybe not supported by the review or by the community. But everything was being published and posted in the PubMed, because it's NIH electronic library, medicine library. So everything what's there, it's been peer reviewed. That's a good source of information.
Well, thank you so much. We've asked you so many questions.
Yeah, and also, as I mentioned about Metabicity Health Conference, I know and I saw a lot of videos from previous years, at least for 2 years, because we had virtual conferences, and many of them, many talks are available on YouTube and online. So I just really recommend to watch them. That's great resource.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
If you are more interested in a specific project, NIH has a database. It's called NIH e-Reporter. Did you hear about a reporter?
I've not heard about it. Have any of you?
I can send you the link, e-Reporter. So it's a public database about all funded projects at NIH. So you can select by topic, you can select by institute, you can select by the specific organization who received that funding. There are a lot of options for search, but the bottom line, all what's been funded at NIH are publicly available. So you can find the title and the abstract of this study. So that's a great information to knowledge what's been funded, how innovative your idea to compare. Also, if you need to know more about clinical trials, always look clinicaltrials.gov website. Yeah, and you will have information about about currently ongoing or completed clinical study, because by NIH policy, all projects that are funded by NIH are required to be listed in the clinicaltrials.gov. So, but as I do very often some search, and I see a lot of companies and entire, not only national and international, everybody are posting what's going on. You might not see some data because not always they posting the results, but at least you will get what kind of trials in a specific area being initiated.
Brilliant.
Okay.
I would love to get a photograph with you. Is it okay if I take a screenshot?
Oh yeah, just you can.
Okay, awesome. I'll take a screenshot in 3, 2, 1. Awesome.
Okay, I'm not moving.
Oh wait, let's take another one. I closed my eyes. Oh my god.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Got it. Wow, this is
Okay.
really...
If you have some additional questions, you always can send me email. If I can answer. Just if you're talking about something general. But once again, if you're using the PubMed, NIH Reporter, and clinicaltrial.gov, you can get very comprehensive information what's going on. Some resource about some supporting initiatives you can find from NIA website. So that's also a very, very useful tool. In particular, if you will type available funding initiative, you will see the table with all initiatives with RFA and PAR, PA, what's available. It's not to apply, it's about information. What the institute is looking for. For example, if you see RFA, it's a request for application. That means this program is initiated by the institute or by the specific division. So it's a focus of interest, because not always PI are knowledgeable what we're looking for. The primary investigators, they have their own research, and they apply to the common program announcement, which is started PA. They apply, and it's coming to the review committee, standing the review committee, and then they are distributed by different institutes based on the topic. So, but if institute is interested in a specific approach. For example, if I need to, for example, we published RFA, we needed to study pharmacokinetic of mTOR inhibitors for aging population. We know pharmacokinetic for cancer and for kidney transplantation, but the population is different. Younger, as I said, multi-ability, multi-drug, but we need to know for the aging. So we specifically can publish and we can get the money, set aside money for this program, and we'll publish announcement which is called RFA. And in the body, you can find this RFA, you can find a clear description what we're looking for. What is the topic, what we're looking application, in which topic. So speaking about that table, you can look at announcements to get the idea what the institute is looking for. And as I know, there are now multiple international organizations, and particular South Arabian funds, they approved a lot of funds in support of basic research. There are some foundations now for longevity. So it's very hot topic. But once again, it's not like a magical miracle, because if we consider the whole human being history, we're always looking for the miracle just to live forever. So it's not a goal now, because we know the age, the maximum age approximately, how long we might live. But now the question, how to live productively, how to minimize the aging diseases. Let's say, how to die being young, in other words. So it's the quality, the health span, it's the major focus of longevity, because when we improve longevity, we focusing prevention of the aging diseases or delaying diseases. Because once again, another 10, 20 years of productive life is done for the older population. So that's why we're doing this. And this topic, Asian research, it's still hard right now in terms of the regulatory approaches, because there is no indication. Aging, it's still not recognized as a disease by FDA. People who are working in the drug discovery need to work with different FDA divisions based on health indications. If we're talking about diabetes, for example, we have to communicate with metabolic disease division. If we're talking about heart failure, if we talk or heart disease or lung disease, we have to go to the cardiovascular. If you're talking about frailty, prevention of frailty and muscle skeleton, so we have to go to the muscular and bone disease division. It's very frustrating right now, but this is the reality. And we run several workshops at NIH discussing what do we need to do for the clinical trials right now, prevention versus the treatment diseases. And experts are really suggesting, let's start to treat disease first. Let's try to understand if a new drug can be applicable to minimize symptoms, to treat disease, before we move into the very complex landscape of prevention and life prolongation, because the metrics, outcomes, and parameters are very diluted right now, and just to initiate and to work with early clinical phases, it's better and more clear to demonstrate efficacy toward decrease or prevention of the specific disease. It's much straightforward to get IND, to get approval, to define to select the outcome. Because when we run the clinical trial, it's very important what kind of outcomes we are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
That will be translated in the result of the clinical trial, success or not success. If a trial will be failed to meet the primary outcomes, it's considered unsuccessful. For example, as an mTOR inhibitor with biotherapeutics, and they did the primary outcomes being not selected correctly, and the trial with mTOR inhibitor IT101 failed in the phase 3 study. So this is just was a case of a selection of primary outcome. So
Okay.
that's why it's when you looking and when you're developing a drug, think about indication. If you know what is the product profile table, before it's been required by FDA. Now they lifted these requirements for the product profile. But this table had a very interesting information. First, indication, the source of administration, the diapason of dosage, that's the best considerable dose or the minimum considerable dose. So the expected efficacy, minimum, sufficient, the best, or competitive. So you need to think about how competitive, what do you have already on the market, and what is the difference, what you're studying. In other words, how I was telling to small business, tell me, why do I need to use your product? Tell me from my perspective, what kind of problem do I have? Explain, and then tell me how this your new innovation will solve my problem. If the small business, if you do understand that needs, and if you speak with customers and you can explain the problem and solving, that's already a good sign you're on the right way. If it's interested on only for you, because like elevator pitch, it's a great product, will do. I believe that this. I said, stop. Just please tell me, do I have this problem? What kind of problem it might solve? How important the action, this product to me? And tell me my pain and how this will resolve my pain. So everything is applicable and to device, to IT, for the drug, because we're not talking only about patients. You might think about to transfer your technology to the other company. You don't need to expect when you discover the drug, you will run the clinical trial. You can transfer some IP to the other company. You need to know who is your customer, who is your stakeholder. Why do they need this product? It might be a piece of technology, once again. It might be screening platform. It might be some tool to facilitate research or clinical testing, or maybe standardization for the clinical trials, because we still don't have a common standard, common reference and methodologies to compare apples to apples and to compare translational study and clinical studies. So that might be this. It's not only the drug itself. Yeah, of course, it can be a drug itself, but there are a lot of opportunities around and what's necessary to move the drug toward the approval, to the final approval. So many companies are working to get IP and to transfer this to the other company, to transfer the product.
Great. I think we have to wrap this up, but we really, really appreciated your time today and all the answers you gave us. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, if then we have any follow-up questions, we'll just email you.
Yeah, just you can email, and good luck on your journey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.